Do you do an interval workout now? Have you ever done any interval workouts in your life? First of all, have you ever heard of a word interval training? In this video, I will explain you what interval training is and how to do it. First of all, let me introduce you the history of interval training. Historically speaking, interval training was invented in 1950s by an East German scientist and Czechoslovakian Emil Zatopek did it and won 3 gold medals of 5,000 meter, 10,000 meter, and full marathon in the Olympic game in 1952. He was also the first runner who ran 10,000 meter under 29 minutes all over the world. He's absolutely a legend. When he was preparing for a full marathon, he did even 100 times 400 meter, an incredible workout. Before the East German scientists invented interval training, Nordic runners did fire trek. Before the World War II, Nordic countries were the best in the world, like Sweden, Finland, and Norway. They did fire trek. Fire trek is called speed play in English, if it is translated in a direct way. In Nordic countries, children play running with changing their pace so often, like, let's run fast to that tree, and then jog for a while, and someone starts running faster suddenly, and the rest of the children chase him, and after he was caught, they jog again for a while, and then they sprint uphill to the top, and then jog for a while again. I don't know if Nordic children still do this kind of play though. Interval training was made from fire trek. If you make fire trek more structured, you'll get interval training. However, there's no exact definition of interval training. There is a similar workout called repetition. Usually, there are more rest sessions between fast running sessions in repetition training. However, again, there's no exact definition. Usually, 5 times 1,000 meter with 1 minute recovery is called interval training, and 5 times 1,000 meter with 5 minutes recovery is called repetition training. But not everyone agrees with me. Probably some coaches or athletes call 5 times 1,000 meter with 5 minutes recovery interval training because runners cannot run as fast as 1,500 meter race pace with 5 times 1,000 meter with 5 minutes recovery training. So you cannot draw a clear line between interval training and repetition training. However, it is not so much important. An important thing is why you do interval training and what is the purpose. There are only 3 purposes of interval workout. The first purpose is training your neuromuscular system. Physiologically speaking, it's training your neuromuscular system. However, not many people would understand what I mean by that. So, let me explain it step by step. Practically speaking, it's getting used to speed which you need on a race day. Most of your performance at the middle and long distance events is determined by your metabolism. You cannot sustain a certain speed to the end because you cannot produce energy anymore, not because of the lack of speed. However, you also need to get used to speed. Have you ever experienced you are already struggling in the beginning of a race, nevertheless you feel not so hard? This is very typical if a runner takes part in a shorter race. For example, a good half marathoner is able to run a 1,500 meter race well too. However, they are already struggling in the beginning of the race because their bodies are not used to 1,500 meter race pace. In other words, they cannot stay relaxed enough. They waste some energies and that's why they cannot perform the best. Or some athletes have the best metabolism, e.g. heart, lung, etc. But they lose their race because their bodies are not used to the final sprint of the race enough. This is also very often happening. Physiologically speaking, we human beings' motor nerves are designed for our normal life. In other words, we are the best at doing our normal lives. For example, I use chopsticks instead of a knife and fork. I speak Japanese instead of English. So I'm always better at using chopstick and speaking Japanese than foreigners. I use chopsticks smoothly and speak Japanese smoothly. That means my motor nerves, motor unit are adjusted to for speaking Japanese and using chopsticks well. So I do not struggle for using chopsticks and speaking Japanese. Whatever it is, the more we do it, the more our motor unit, nerves, muscles are well adjusted, designed to do that things. What we are doing in our normal life. That means the more you run, the more your motor units, nerves, muscles adapt to running. You can run more smoothly. However, exactly speaking, the body movement of running 5 minutes per kilometer pace and 3 minutes per kilometer pace are different. If we want to run fast on a race day, our bodies need to get used to fast pace. How fast? As fast as your target race pace, and we want to repeat running that pace over and over and over again. However, here's the problem. The faster the pace is, the more difficult it is to repeat it or increase the volume of running that pace. So, we use interval training. It's so difficult to run your target 5,000 meter race pace constantly, while it is relatively easy to do 15 times 400 meter with 200 meter jogging recovery at your 5,000 meter goal race pace. Also, it is relatively easy to do 25 times 400 meter with 200 meter jogging recovery at your 10,000 meter goal race pace. One more example, it is very difficult to run 1500 meter at your goal race pace constantly in your training, while it is relatively easy to do 8 times 400 meter with 400 meter jogging recovery at your 1500 meter goal race pace. And also, it is important to train your muscle. In middle and long distance running, we need muscle strength. When we run middle or long distance running, our muscles do not make the maximal power. However, we need to last the necessary power to the end of a race. It's not slow and long. It's not the maximal power in 10 seconds, but somehow fast and somehow long. Let's make a quick calculation. If someone's 100 meter race ability, 100 meter race pace is 12 seconds sharp, and full marathon race pace, full marathon performance, 2:06, 36, then full marathon race pace is 66.666666% of the 100 meter race pace. That means this guy's muscles should be resistant to 66.666666% of the maximal power output 2 hours 6 minutes and 36 seconds. He does not need to make the maximal muscle power output on the marathon race day. However, he needs to sustain 66% of the maximal muscle power output to the end, meaning 2 hours, 6 minutes, 36 seconds. His 5,000 meter race pace would be approximately 75% of the maximal muscle power output, and he needs to sustain it approximately 13 minutes. The exact number depends on your event and your current ability, of course. Our muscles should be resistant to somehow long distance and somehow fast pace. To train our muscles, interval training is also useful because if we put recovery sessions between fast sessions, it is relatively easy to run somehow fast and somehow long. So again, this is the first purpose of using interval training your neuromuscular system. The second purpose of interval training is training your metabolism. One of the most important determinants of middle and long distance running performance is aerobic capacity, meaning how much energy you can produce at given time by using aerobic metabolism. That's why most of your training should be aerobic running. In other words, endurance runs which do not require anaerobic metabolism. However, if we want to use aerobic metabolism at the maximum level, we also need to anaerobic metabolism, and that means we get tired very soon. So we need recovery sessions between fast running sessions. Let me explain it step by step. First of all, we human beings usually do not use anaerobic metabolism. Most of our energy for life is made in aerobic energy. In our daily lives, we do not use anaerobic energy. Not only we human beings, but also all animals on the earth. Not in the sea. Produce energy by using aerobic energy system because aerobic energy system is much more efficient than anaerobic energy system. It is said that lives developed by making more energy by using aerobic energy system. For example, in the sea, there is not as much oxygen as on the earth. So, fishes cannot produce as much energy as lives on the earth can produce. That's why most big animals live on earth. Also, intelligent animals live on the earth because if there is not much oxygen, it is impossible to produce energy for brains. In the sea, there are some big animals and intelligent animals, but they sometimes come up to the sea level and then inhale and exhale. Whales, dolphins, orcas, they do that. In other words, they produce energy by using aerobic metabolism much more than fishes. Anyway, we almost forgot about anaerobic metabolism in our evolution process. However, we still use it if it is emergency. The faster we run, the more energy we need at given time, let's say at a minute. The energy demand increases proportionally to running speed. And once we reach our limits of aerobic metabolism, we start using anaerobic energy system to make enough energy to sustain that running speed. However, we human beings are not robots. We do not start using anaerobic metabolism exact the moment aerobic metabolism reaches a limit. Before the aerobic metabolism reaches a limit, our bodies start using anaerobic metabolism gradually. That means if we want to give our body the maximum aerobic power output stimulus, we also need to use anaerobic metabolism. Roughly speaking, once running speed reaches marathon race pace or a little slower than that, our bodies start using anaerobic metabolism. And as running speed increases, our bodies use more anaerobic metabolism exponentially, not proportionally. And our aerobic power output reaches the maximum at 5,000 to 3,000 meter race pace. However, here's the problem. Anaerobic metabolism is not only inefficient, but also it is toxic. The more anaerobic metabolism we use, the shorter time we can sustain that pace because of the toxin. If you do not get slower, you'll die, or at least some of your muscle cells destroy completely because of the toxin. Fortunately, by the way, the toxin here, exactly speaking, it's hydrogen ion, but it's not important anyway. Let's call it a toxin. Fortunately, you do not need to consider that because your central nervous system forces you to slow down. There's no way to talk against your central nervous system. Your central nervous system is the governor of your body. Again, once your running speed reaches full marathon race pace or slightly slower than that, your body starts using anaerobic metabolism. And after that, as the running speed increases, your body uses more anaerobic metabolism exponentially. That means in middle and long distance running races, your body always uses anaerobic metabolism. Also, your aerobic metabolism reaches a limit at your 5,000 to 3,000 meter race pace. In other words, if your running speed is slower than that, your aerobic metabolism does not reach the limit. If you want to reach your potential, your body needs to reach the limit and also gets used to using anaerobic metabolism. In other words, your body needs to get used to the toxin. So, sometimes you need to run faster than full marathon race pace up to 3,000 meter race pace if you are not a middle distance runner. And if you are a middle distance runner, you need to run even faster sometimes in training. However, sustaining this pace is not easy because of the toxin. So we put recovery sessions between fast running sessions. This is a basic idea of interval training. Training your metabolism is the second purpose of interval training. And also, if you understand this, you'll also understand why most of your training should not be hard. In other words, should be slower than race pace. It is because if you run at your race pace, your body produces toxin. A little toxin can be medicine, while enough amount of toxin can destroy your body. This is a simple reason why your most of training should be slower than race pace. In other words, not hard. The third purpose of interval training is preparing for your race specifically. Our bodies adapt to the stimulus specifically. If you live in a hot place, your body is more resistant to heat. And if you live in a cold place, your body is more resistant to cold. If you play basketball, you become a better basketball player. If you swim, you become a better swimmer. So if you want to run 10,000 meters 14 minutes, you need to run 10,000 meters 14 minutes in training. But how? My question is, what the training for running 10,000 meters 14 minutes is? That cannot be running 10,000 meters 14 minutes in training, because if you can do that, you do not need training. You are already able to run 10,000 meters 14 minutes. My question is how we can make something impossible possible. The simple answer is putting recovery sessions during a workout. You cannot run 10,000 meters 14 minutes now. And if you can run faster on a race day. So you do 10 times 1,000 meters with 1 minute recovery jogging instead of running 10,000 meters without any breaks. If you repeat it 2 times, you can imagine how it feels on a race day, and you will see if you are ready to run 10,000 meters 14 minutes or not. If you repeat it 4 to 8 times before your target race, you are well prepared for everything: metabolism, neuromuscular systems, and mentality. Mentality is also important. You need to get confident before a race, mentally and psychologically. So, this is the third reason of interval training. Giving the specific stimulus to your body. Again, giving the specific stimulus to your body is the third reason of interval training. Remember, interval training is efficient if it is a little. Interval training is a kind of toxin. If it is a little, it can be good medicine. While if it is too much, it destroys your body completely. Always remember that. Today's lesson is over. Thank you for your watching. And lastly, if you want to learn more about running faster, then please click the link below and download my free ebooks, The 3 Factors You Should Know to Get Faster Dramatically Without Any Injuries and Overtraining. Again, thank you for your watching and see you in the next video. Bye for now.
我は嵐し我が敵は我が身に潜む臆病像これに打ち勝つ我が筒は心に秘めたる国旗心国旗の心を持つ者はなどて恐るることやある鬼人に恥じぬ勇持ちて我らはいかん心して立つ時こそは今なるぞ人に遅れて恥かくないざすら音なるまでは走れや走れ者ともに滴る汗を光らせてなどてたゆとことやあるこそ く決戦に鉄より固き心持つ修繕この方すかれたる大和のこの今さらにまた世に泉の誉れ荒獅子ここに集いたり叩き心のいい鉄に荒獅子魂あるものの時こそ来たれ霊か一歩も後に引く流れいざまずら音なるまでは走れや走れもろともに滴る汗を光らせて名の手だゆのことやる前を望めば苦難なり右も左もまた苦難み空の月を見上げては七難八苦を望むのも我らが力試すため常に前へと意地を見せん闘魂もゆる荒獅子の気をここに今見ようや人生意気に感じては聖碑を誰かあげつらういざまずら音なるまでは走れや走れもろともに滴る汗を光らせて名どてたゆとことやる